in this quick Photoshop tutorial, I will teach you all the types of blur which we have inside this software, and also I will teach you them in a way which is beginner friendly. So we have a lot of things with which you can start, and yeah, have no worry. Also, I will highly recommend to check the playlist from the description, because I have a Photoshop playlist in which you can find plenty of Photoshop tutorials. Now let's get this tutorial started, shall we? I have choose this picture from Pexels because it's very detailed, and we can choose to blur a section of the photo. As an example, what if we want to blur that sign? What if we want to blur this model text from here? It's not a model. Anyway, what if we want to blur the entire picture or just a section of it? I will teach you all this. So that being said, let's start it steady and easy. First case, what if we want to blur the entire picture? Well, that's an easy case. First of all, what I usually do, I will just unlock the picture from the layers, alright? And you want to click once on it with the left click, make sure it's selected. Now, if you want to blur the entire picture, go to filters here above and you'll find here blur. And inside here you have many types of blurs. As an example, most used by me is the Gaussian blur. I don't know how it can be pronounced, and you can see that's a soft and classic blur, and from here you can control the intensity of the blur. Let's go slowly to the right, and now it becomes very blurred. Okay, this one, it's a classic blur which everyone knows, and I think is the most used blur in Photoshop. Now that I shown you the Gaussian blur, let's get to the next one, which is the motion blur. This one is very cool if you want to give a motion effect to the picture. You can notice when I go to the right, it becomes more intensified, and also from here you can adjust the angle of the motion blur. Very cool. As an example, we can leave it to 0 angle, increase a little bit to the right, and you can imagine if that was a street and you put a car right here, you will create a feeling of speed, basically a feeling of motion. And speaking of motion, I want to give you a perspective of what you can do exactly with the motion blur I talked about earlier. What I have here, I have another picture, and what I did basically with the help of the object selection tool, I copy the entire car, and now I'll press Ctrl and C to copy and Ctrl and V to paste. And if you pay attention at the layers, we have a new layer with the car, which is right here. Basically, this is the same process you will do when you want to remove the background. And now that I have a layer with the car, I want to copy the exact layer with the car and paste it again. And I want to paste this car exactly on the original position. Okay. And now let's give some motion blur to the background. Select the background from above right here and go to the filters, blur and motion blur, exactly what I showed you earlier. And now let's give some motion blur to this picture, something like that. And also with the angle, this is the angle which I showed you, the car follows this angle, so let's match the best we can the angle of blur with the angle of the car. And now I'll press on OK. And also with this layer underneath, I want to give to it the same blur that I gave to the background. So again, make sure the layer underneath is selected. And now actually I will zoom in so you can see better. Filters, blur, motion blur, and once again I selected the layer underneath the car. And now let's give some motion blur to the car underneath the car. So let's drag it slowly to the right. That's too much. Let's go a little bit lower, something like that. And you can notice at the margins we have this motion blur effect of the car basically moving. And what we can do, actually, we can drag and drop the second car, the car underneath, to the right a little bit, to something like that. So we'll create the effect that the car is moving forward. So this is a great example what you can do with the help of the motion blur in Photoshop. Now back to the video. Let's cancel this because I don't want to blur the entire picture. But what if you want to blur just a segment of it? As an example, let's try to blur this sign. Well, for this we have many cases how we can do that. I will show you first the blur tool which you have. You can find it right here. If you can't find it, right click on it and now select the blur tool. And also this is the size of the brush. You can control it from here. Go to the right, select this pointing down arrow, and you can increase it to make it bigger or decrease it to make it slower. Let's increase it just a tiny bit. Okay, and the hardness is the intensity of the blur. Let's leave it to 100% and increase it to 48. Now let's zoom a little bit more, and what you have to do, just spam the right click until you will blur the entire thing, but it's not very effective. As you can see, it's just a tiny effect of a blur. I am very rarely using this tool. Now I will Ctrl and Z until it will become like before. Alright, almost there. And now we're back like it was. Another method how you can blur this, it's with the regular murky tool, is the second tool which you have right here. Right click on it and select a shape. Usually I will select the first one, okay? And what you want to do, by holding the left click, you can include everything which you want to blur inside this. Yeah, that's okay. Now release the click once you select everything. Now press Ctrl and C to copy what's inside this square, and now Ctrl and V to paste. And if you pay attention at the layers, a new layer has been created. Make sure you select this layer which you created. Also, if you press V to use the select tool, now you can see you can drag and drop it wherever you want. So this is basically what we did. Now Ctrl and Z to put it where it was, and using the filters blur from above, now go to blur and let's use the Gaussian blur. All right, and let's see what type of blur we give it with. I think something like that. Sure. Now you can't read that. Let's zoom out. You can read the first letter. Let's Ctrl and Z and do it better. Again to blur, Gaussian blur. Okay, now it's much better. I press OK. You can do the same thing to apply a motion blur effect. As an example, let's use now the motion blur effect. Okay. No, that's a little bit too much. Maybe something like that. Let's select the angle 0 and increase just a tiny bit the blur. Alright, that's another way how you can blur something inside Adobe Photoshop. Let's Ctrl and Z all this. Also, if you don't know the movements inside Photoshop, if you hold the Alt on your keyboard and use your mouse wheel, you can zoom out and zoom in. And now, using the spacebar, hold the spacebar. With the help of your left click, you can drag around your photo so you can move. So with Alt and mouse wheel, you can zoom out and zoom in, and with the space bar you can move around. That's how to navigate on a photo inside Adobe Photoshop. Now I'll show you a cool technique how you can play with what we learned so far. Let's delete the layer which we created, zoom in all the way until we can see a car. Let's select which one. I think this SUV. So now with the object selection tool, let's click once on it and let's try to click on the car. Yeah, it's selected almost perfectly. If you want to use this tool more perfectly to create a PNG out of a picture, don't forget to check the playlist, because this one is more complex than it looks. So now once you selected something, Ctrl and C and Ctrl and V, and we created the layer. Basically we created the PNG. Now what we want to do, let's select the photo, the bigger photo, not the car, and go to filters, blur, and let's go to motion blur, and let's try to increase it to see how it looks. Let's not exaggerate, something like that. Let's give it a 90-degree angle. No, maybe a 49. It looks decent, but we can do it better, something like that. It's something. That's another way how you can play with the motion blur. Let's Ctrl and Z until it becomes like it was, and let's delete the layer, the car that we just created. Using this method, you can also highlight a building, so we can focus on an object or a person from a picture and blur the entire thing around. So let's use again the object selection tool, and let's select this building. Okay, it can do better. Right click on it and select the quick selection tool, and now I will increase the size maybe to 10. And if you hold the shift and with your left click, you can include something, or if you hold the Alt on your keyboard and use your mouse wheel, you can exclude something. So using this, I want to include also this part of the building which Photoshop didn't took from the beginning. Also I want this part. Okay, this part, this part, this part. Oh no, it took the window from the another building, come on. Okay. I don't want to do it perfect. I don't want to make this tutorial like a half an hour. Okay, now it's much better. It took also some things from the streets. Let's exclude these persons. Okay, I excluded everything else and I copied the building the best I could. I don't want to be perfect. I just want this to be as an example for you. So now, as I selected the building or the person which you want to focus the entire photo on, press Ctrl and C and Ctrl and V again, and we created the layer of this building from here. Alright, now I want to select the photo. You can also select it from here, and let's apply a blur to it so we can focus only on the building. Yeah, something like that works. Let's press on OK. And now pay attention at the building, Ctrl and Z. This was how it was. Let's try also the motion blur, which I showed you earlier. Maybe something like that, press on OK. And using this technique, you can copy a person. If that photo is a selfie or something like that, you can include the person from inside and you can blur the entire background. So these are the basics in Photoshop about the blur and how you can use it inside your projects. If this tutorial helped you out, don't forget to smash the like button, leave your thoughts down in the comments, and also don't forget you will have a playlist in the description with a bunch of helpful tutorials for Photoshop. Thanks a lot for watching and bye bye.